joining us now, and you just saw the beautiful red cape you pulled back from all those all that paper. Joining us from Cincinnati with his thoughts, Republican Senator Rob Portman from Ohio, and he was also a former OMB director and trade representative. Senator, it's great to see you. I don't know if you could hear our discussion. We're looking for a verb to describe the 1.1 trillion in cuts over the next 10 years. And depending on what cable channel you tune into, it's either taking a horrific machete and slashing every social program known to man, or it's gently paring around the edges. What verb would you use for 1.1 trillion?
Well, I would quote the Democrat who co-chaired the President's Fiscal Commission, Erskine Bowles, who said today it's nowhere near enough to deal with the problem that we face. And look, the President has been very articulate in stating the problem. It's a huge fiscal challenge, and unfortunately, from what I've heard about it, this budget does not rise to that challenge.
Yeah, $4 trillion is a ways up, but maybe that was in a utopian world. That was a commission. It was bipartisan, but that was like, if I could do everything I wanted, I'd get to $4 trillion. So you probably cut that in half, right to start for living in the real world, and then you cut it in half again, and you're at 1.1 trillion basically. And that's kind of what Jack Lew just said. It's something that's reasonable. It does address the deficit to some extent over the next 10 years. But I guess you're saying it avoids the hard choices.
It avoids the hard choices. And look, the reality is that we face the biggest deficits in the history of our country, the biggest debts, of course, and they continue to grow under this budget. And again, the President and his budget director and others have laid out the problem very well. The concern I have is that their solutions don't come nearly close enough to meeting that challenge. And again, I reference the fiscal commission that the President set up. He rejected their recommendations. As you know, Neil, there are three basic ways you have to deal with a budget. One is the annual spending, and there the President has locked in these high levels of spending, 24% increase in the last 2 years alone, even taking out the stimulus package and the supplemental and so on. And then second, you've got to deal with the entitlement programs. Right now, of course, that's over 60% of the budget. And I haven't seen the details of the budget yet, but from what I hear, they've decided to take a pass on not only the biggest part of the budget, but the fastest growing part of the budget.
But the Republicans aren't really trying to tackle that either right now, are they, Senator? Well, the entitlement issue. If you were still director of OMB, are you telling me you'd have something in there proposing to deal with the entitlements? Well,
I did. As you know, 4 years ago when we proposed a budget, it balanced in 5 years. And it included significant changes in the Medicare program to deal with the rising costs of health care, which the President still has not addressed, which is the #1 budget problem we face. And that's why we got to budget balance within 5 years. Now, at that time, the deficit was a lot smaller. But look, the Fiscal Commission attacks it. Everyone who talks about this issue, right, left, or center, acknowledges the fact that it's the biggest part of our budget and the fastest growing part of our budget. And the third area, as you know, is growth. You know, you've got to have pro-growth policies in order to grow our way out of this, as well as making the necessary adjustments on the spending side. And I don't know what's in there exactly. I'm really hopeful there'll be some significant tax reform that'll lead to faster growth by lowering rates, broadening the base, all the things that people agree with. The Fiscal Commission laid it out. I don't think it's going to be in this budget, Neil, and it concerns me because in the area of annual spending, the entitlements and growth, this budget disappoints as far as I can tell.
Senator, do you think the Journal has it wrong? I'll just read this to you. Neither Mr. Obama nor the Republicans or Democratic leaders in Congress have stepped up to tackle the entitlement issue. And the thrust of the article is that neither side wants to show their hand prior to the 2011, the remainder of the year, and prior to the debt ceiling argument. And everybody's kind of posturing, and they don't want to get locked into a position before those real negotiations start. But it just doesn't seem like the American people want to hear that anymore. And it seems to be bipartisan, the obfuscation.
Well, I think if that's the way that people are analyzing this, that, gee, the President didn't put forward his best foot because he's waiting for the other side, I think we're caught in a sort of partisan game that's not going to result in any progress. So the President has to show leadership. And if he does show leadership on the entitlement programs, I believe that he will see support on both sides of the aisle. One, he's got to show leadership, as you know, because the Treasury Department, Department of HHS, the executive branch has to take the lead on some of this. It's very complicated. It's difficult to do. Second, in terms of the politics of this, the president needs to take the lead in order for others to be able to come on board, and that's the reality. So this is the first salvo, I guess, in the budget battles. The best light we can put on it is that this isn't a serious attempt to deal with the issues, because it is just a first salvo. But that disappoints, because if we don't begin to get serious about this, the 2012 election will be here before we know it. We'll be stuck in this spiral of spending and spiral of deficits and debts that makes it very difficult for us to get out of the economic problems we're in now and to really have growth. And of course, it mortgages the future for our kids and grandkids. So I was hoping for more, and I'm hopeful that I'll be wrong, and when we see the budget, that it'll have more on all those areas: annual spending, entitlements, and some pro-growth policies.
Senator, of course, the president's budget is just his proposal. Ultimately, it's up to the Congress what's actually included in the budget, what is actually spent. In your closed-door meetings with fellow senators, do you think there really is consensus that we need to do something, and that they're willing to make the political sacrifices that they need to make in order to pass a budget that really moves the needle?
I think we have moved beyond just rhetoric on this. I think people are willing to take tough decisions. And we saw this with the Fiscal Commission. Most of the members of Congress who were on that Fiscal Commission voted for it, Democrats and Republicans alike. All of the senators voted for it, except one, Democrats and Republicans alike. So, yes, I think there's a willingness, but it's going to require leadership. The president has laid out the problem in an articulate way, in his normal eloquence, and now he needs to address the problem.
You know, Senator, one question, though, we've been asking today whether voters really recognize the need to address on some issue. It seems to me that there is some sort of voter sentiment that, yes, this is a problem, but making comments like that, you would not believe the email that starts coming in. What's your sense from what you hear from your constituents?
Well, my constituents are looking for some action. I mean, I think the message from the election was twofold. One, we've got to get the economy under jobs again in places like Ohio, where we have nearly double-digit unemployment still. Second, we've got to get the deficit under control and the spending under control, and we should work together to do that. So I think people are ready if, again, provided the right information and if they see leadership from both sides.
Are you urging any of your colleagues are you backing anyone yet for 2012, Rob?
No, I'm not. You know, Ohio's likely to be a battleground again, and we've had several potential Republican presidential candidates come through, and we've got a few more coming through in the next month, actually. And, you know, I'm encouraged by the field. There's probably 6 or 7 people who I think are legitimate candidates, and I think it's time for all of them to come to Ohio. We got to get you guys to come to Cincinnati to do a show. Joe keeps talking about it.
March 31st.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not.
Will you join us from there?
Unbelievable. Well, I've got to be here to put out the red carpet for...
You do. We were not coming if you're not. We'll change it. We'll change it if you're not going to be there on... there's something going up in between the 2 stadiums, some big development deal or something. But we're covering...
the banks.
Is that the banks? Is that what it is? Cool.
You got to come see it. It's actually coming out of the ground finally after a decade.
Great. So who's been through? We got to go, but who's been through in the last couple of months that Ohio's going to be a popular spot for all the candidates, no doubt.
Well, Tim Pawlenty was here a couple weeks ago. Mitch Daniels is coming in about 10 days. Governor Romney will be here again. He was here 2 or 3 times during the campaign in 2010. So, you know, everyone's going to come through, and that's good. It's good for Ohio, and it's good for folks to get a chance to hear him.
I was kidding Governor Daniels that, you know, he's right next door to Ohio, but a lot more presidents from Ohio. I don't know. They've you know, he could help rectify that a little bit, right? I mean,
He's got Benjamin Harrison.
That's it.
He's also got Peyton Manning.
That's it. Oh, Peyton Manning. All right.
We've got the Browns.
He'd be a good candidate.
I can't even count the presidents from Ohio. Anyway, Senator, thank you for your time this morning. We'll definitely see you in March, if not sooner. Hopefully.
Thanks, Joe. Neil, Becky, good to be on with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
We've been keeping an eye on Egypt this morning. Things are starting to